according to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the U.S. gave South Sudan over $800 million in foreign assistance in 2022. Now, why did the U.S. give South Sudan so much money? Well, South Sudan is ranked 191st out of 192 countries on the Human Development Index with a score of 0.385. The Human Development Index measures human development based on health, knowledge, and standard of living. The closer your score is to one, the better you are doing in terms of those three categories. The lower your score, the poorer you are doing. So, as you can see, being ranked 191st out of 192 with a score below zero point 0.4, South Sudan is not doing very well in terms of its development. To put this in a bit of perspective for you, the US is ranked 20th out of 192 countries with a score of 0.927. So, why has South Sudan fared so poorly since gaining independence in 2011? Well, South Sudan has faced many challenges, the biggest three being government corruption, inadequate institutions, and regional conflict. Let's dive deeper into each of these challenges, starting with government corruption. Now, what do I mean when I say South Sudan's government is corrupt? Well, first, the same powerful elites have held power since gaining independence in 2011. For example, Salva Kiir, the current president, has been president since 2011, despite the transitional constitution that was signed stating that elections would be held in 2015. At the time, they were pushed back due to a civil war that was going on in South Sudan. However, they have been pushed back several times since then, and there has yet to be a credible election held in South Sudan. In addition, the Anti-Corruption Committee that was set up in 2009 as a way to try and avoid the corruption that they were experiencing as a part of the country of Sudan has no power to actually prosecute anyone they find guilty of corrupt actions. In a similar light, the national court system of South Sudan is run by the executive branch rather than its own judicial branch, which makes it very difficult to implement and enforce any kind of anti corruption laws or policies. In addition to corruption, South Sudan has struggled with poor organization. South Sudan does not have strong institutions, which, in this context, refer to the established organizations or structures that govern a country. The reason that their institutions are so poor is in part because, as part of Sudan, they were largely ignored due to the fact that the capital is in the northern part of the country. So even before they gained independence and became their own country, they had no institutions to rely on and therefore had a very poor, if present at all, foundation when they became their own country. As I mentioned earlier, the transitional constitution and government that was agreed upon in 2011 was not meant to last. Because of this, the constitution only addressed the most pressing and immediate needs of the country and did not set up any kind of organizational body for taxes, police, really many of the things that you and I take for granted as American citizens either do not exist or are unorganized and inefficient in South Sudan due to the fact that they have yet to rewrite and create an official constitution. Lastly, these inadequate institutions perpetuate the limited power sharing or accountability that adds to the corrupt government and the few powerful elites that maintain power that I mentioned a moment ago. Another example of a lacking institution in South Sudan is that the National Police Service is not only unorganized, but at times outright abusive towards its citizens. According to the BTI Transition Index, which is a project that analyzes and compares transformation processes towards democracy, the National Police Service of South Sudan is responsible for a significant number of human rights violations in the past few years. So the previous few issues that I just covered were isolated to South Sudan. However, another challenge that South Sudan is facing is that of regional conflict that has plagued the entire Central East African region. For example, 2 years after gaining independence, South Sudan itself fell into a 5 year um, civil war. While it officially ended in 2018, there have been instances of intercommunal violence since 2018, and they have been ramping up in recent years. Another example is the conflict in Sudan that started last year and has continued into this year. Due to the violence going on in Sudan, people are fleeing the country and trying to cross over the South Sudanese northern border. This is creating congestion at the border and is causing conflict to ensue between Sudanese and South Sudanese citizens who are fighting for the same few scarce resources such as food, water, and shelter. To summarize what I just talked about, South Sudan, as the youngest country on earth, has struggled with many challenges since gaining independence in 2011, the most difficult of which have been government corruption, lacking institutions, and regional conflict. Do you remember what I told you earlier about the amount of money the US gave South Sudan in 2022? Well, I have hope that South Sudan's development will improve. And I think that the money the US is giving them is proof that the US has hope as well. So if you feel discouraged after hearing everything I've had to say about South Sudan's development challenges, I encourage you to take comfort in knowing that several countries, including the US, are actively taking action in order to help South Sudan turn around their luck and begin positively developing. Thank you.